Hey everybody, this is Joric. Welcome back to Portugal and Beyond. I hope you're having a fantastic day. This is part 4 in my series of investing in Portugal real estate. And this is one that many people have asked for to be part 1, or when was I going to get to it? Where should we invest in real estate in Portugal? That's the $1 million, €1 million, €1 million, £1 million corona question. And I don't have a great answer for you. What I want to do is give you some places that, based upon Idealista, research from Remax, Century 21, the Portuguese government, where people are buying property or refurbishing or renovating current property. I want to go through some of those places. Many of them might be review to you. Some of them may be new. So I want to start on the islands and then work my way to the mainland. But let's start with the Azores. There are plenty of opportunity. There is plenty of opportunity if you're looking for a home versus an apartment, if you're looking for farmland, or you're looking for a place with a lot of outdoor space, if you're looking to be literally right on the ocean without having to pay the mainland Portugal prices or oceanfront property prices in your respective country. Many of the Azore Islands can offer that to you. They are still mostly uninhabited. They're still wild in my respect, meaning they have many hikers, bikers, cyclists, people that are looking to get back to nature. If you are that type of person, or if you just, you need to get away from society, quite honestly, the Azores are an amazing place to go. It's the pace is more quiet. Most of the bigger islands have an airstrip, so you can get to and from the mainland or other places, which is good. I will say in the wintertime, sometimes some of the tourists will go away, so you pretty much have the place to yourself. So you do need to get to know the locals a little bit. Probably helps to know some Portuguese. But the Azores are a place that tourists are flocking to, not necessarily investors, but I think that is, I'll say, that chain of islands, that archipelago, is a hidden gem, because you can get something for a fraction of the price of, let's say, the U.S. Hawaiian Islands. Moving south to Madeira, it's very well developed already, with lots of hotels, new developments with old construction. It's still a deal or a bargain when you're comparing it to, let's say, U.S. properties, maybe some properties in Canada or the U.K. There's a lot to do there. It's a major airport, so you can get to many other countries directly from there, as opposed to having to fly to Lisbon or Porto or Faro to get a connecting flight. Madeira is something that has been on the investors' watch for several years. So you will pay more, certainly more than the Azores, but you will pay less there for ocean property or property close to nature. You want mountainous regions. It's still going to be maybe less than many places on the mainland. Let's move to the mainland. Let's start at the south, the Algarve. As many of you know, you've seen videos, you've seen content, people have moved, a lot of people live there. In the summertime, let's say spring, summer, and fall, the Algarve is packed. And then in the late fall to early spring, it's pretty dead, meaning it's mostly locals. Not a lot of people are living year-round that are expats per se. There are towns closer to the Spanish border, so I'll say the eastern side of the Algarve. I believe it's Villarreal de Sant Antonio. It's right on the border. And there are some places that if you want a newer development, you don't want to pay the same prices that you're paying in Portimao, Vilamora, Lagos, Albufeira. That is an area that is developing, that is maybe one sliver of the Algarve that hasn't been overdeveloped yet or overpriced yet. and you're not that far from Faro. So if you're looking at an airport, you're literally right across the border from Spain. So there's several little communities there that might be worth looking at, that you could get a better deal, still live in the Algarve, be close to Spain as well, and have a very good lifestyle. As you're moving north from the Algarve, I'll say up to Lisbon, there is the Alentejo wine region. There's a town called Beja. I don't know if there's opportunity there, but not a lot of new development. If you go to Evra, so Evra is an old Roman fortification, I believe. That is the doorway to the Alentejo, I think they call it, the wine region there. That city is only an hour outside of Lisbon, maybe a little longer depending on traffic. You can get rural living, you can get larger apartment spaces. Most of them are older, but you can get more space. You can buy more with your dollar or euro or pound than you can in Lisbon. Evra is certainly a place that I would consider, especially if we were thinking of a second property, or if we were looking to move out of Lisbon. This would be one of many places that we would consider. So that's east of Lisbon. Moving directly south of Lisbon, there are many places that are now on the radar of expats, or people looking to not just move but live here and buy property. Palmela is a place just south of the Vasco da Gama Bridge. That area offers more newer builds of apartment buildings, single family homes, as well as some property. So if you had like a little garden, or if you wanted to have a ranch, or if you wanted to have trees or something like that, like a fruit trees or something, that would be an area to go to. As you're moving westward towards the coast, there is Sesimbra, Setúbal, there is Almada, which is directly south of Lisbon as well. All of these areas that are south of the April 25th bridge in Lisbon are becoming more popular. And the reason why is they're anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes outside the city, far enough but close enough that they have public transportation, they may have a train line, you might need a car, but there are some great opportunities there. More of it is older older developments. You need to rehab a building or renovate an apartment and update it, but you can get great value there. I will say you can still get better value than, of course, Lisbon. Moving north into Lisbon, a question that everybody asks: what's the hidden gem? Where can we get property? There's got to be some place that no one knows of yet in Lisbon, and the answer is no. I'll say this: it's sort of been picked over, meaning the up and coming developments or the up and coming neighborhoods are all up and coming. They've up and come. If you are looking west of Lisbon, Cascais and Estoril is a little enclave where there are a lot of Americans that over the last 10 to 15 years have moved to. So if you are particularly from the US and you're looking at property and you want to invest in something and you want to be around fellow US expats, I would recommend Cascais and Estoril. You're going to pay a lot though. The properties are mostly very expensive. Many of them are renovated and they're asking a premium for those. In Lisbon proper, like our neighborhood, which is kind of the Estrela Lapa area, I don't know that there's value here. I think there are so many things that are starting at 500,000 euros or more that when I look at those properties, I just don't see it. So I think that people are really, per my last video I made, really trying to get a lottery ticket by redeveloping anything here in Lisbon and slapping a big price tag, hoping an expat will get it. If you can afford it, if it's something that you have your heart set on, you want to be in Lisbon or in the city center, there are lots of places that you can get that are probably going to be 400,000 euros up to a couple million euros in price that are available. If you want to go north of Lisbon, I would recommend one area, and I would probably go maybe 30 miles northwest east, south of it. Torres Vedras, it's just north of the city of Lisbon, but it is more country, more rural, and some of the area, I will say, extends out into the Atlantic, what's called the Silver Coast. Now, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But there are many places north of Lisbon that you can find older apartments, some newer developments, but you can get, again, the farther you get out of Lisbon, the more value you get. And I think that applies to just about anywhere on the planet. Wherever the most expensive place is, when you start building 20, 30, 50 an hour minute outside of that area, you're going to get more bang for your buck. Again, if you want property, if you want a couple of acres, if you want farmland or trees or just a huge garden, or you just want room to roam, that area north of Lisbon is something that I would recommend checking out. Most likely need a car. There is transportation options to and from, but I think you're probably going to need a vehicle to be in that area. But for what you could get for a property, a vehicle's the least of your worries. Let's move west. So we're north of Lisbon, Torres Vedras, but now we're going to move west towards the coast, the Silver Coast. And it doesn't start in Ericeira, but one of the main places. Love going there. Ericeira, you've Peniche. Many of you probably have heard of Azores because of the surf community, and now it's made it onto national TV shows and international shows. That stretch there, which were just kind of small fishing or surfing villages, have become more popular. There are some newer developments going in right along the coastline, so you might get a front row to the Atlantic if you choose to, and if you can afford it. Some of those properties are starting in the 300,000 euros, and they're going into the 2 million euros, depending on what you want. But that area is also something that is developing. It's become more popular right before the pandemic, and now as the pandemic wanes, I'm meeting more people in Lisbon that are from, let's say, the US, Canada, or the UK that have looked at the Algarve because of the weather and it's a little warmer and whatnot, and they're going, okay, but if it's $100,000 to $150,000 less to be on the Silver Coast and get the same size property, man, maybe we'll wear a sweatshirt a little more often and it might be a little cooler, but the savings that we'll get translates into, just, again, so many people are moving here in retirement age, and you don't, if you're spending 150,000 euros more for something, you may not have a lot of time to recoup that depending on how much equity is built into a property. So the Silver Coast is something that certainly I would keep an eye on. Ericeira, Peniche. Another area that is, I missed with the Torres Vedras is Caldas de Reis. That area too has become popular with expats. I'm getting more messages from people going, what do you think of this area? Or what if we set up a business here? Or what if we might be able to buy a whole building here as opposed to an apartment in Lisbon. We could buy a 4 apartment building. And you're right, there's more renovation options. Again, it's an older area. There are some new things going in, but it is an excellent area to consider. And if you're okay being out of the city, not being in the heart of the action, but if you want slower pace of life, cheaper pace of life, that's another place to look at. Moving north through Portugal, I'm going to say Coimbra, which is, I don't know if it's directly halfway, but for me it's the halfway point between Porto and Lisbon. It's a university town. It's just got a great vibe. Younger people there, some older people as well, great restaurants. The university's not going away, so if you're investing in a property for yourself or somewhere down the road, you may be renting it out to a college student, perfect. That may be a great situation for you to do. I really like Coimbra, and again, you have a bus line and train line that can get you up to Porto, down to Lisbon. It's a good location, and the prices are not bad right now. Give it a few years, they may go up, but I think that's certainly a place to look at. If you're going to go east of there, and let's say you're going to go towards towards Spain in the mountain area. Castelo Branco, there's several areas in there, more rural, more terrain, but more affordable. Now the difficulty is, as I'm making this video, there are also forest fires there, so I want to make sure that as I'm telling you places that you may look to consider, you also need to consider that that seems to be an area annually, and in our 3 years here, there are fires that seem to come up there once in a while, every season, like in June, July, and August, they're popping up. So I want you to be cautious of that. But it's a beautiful area. If you want nature and you want the mainland nature versus the islands, this is as good as it gets. It's just beautiful. And what you can buy for property, you could buy a ranch there for the price of what you could, probably the price of our flat in Lisbon. There's a lot of opportunity. You would definitely need a vehicle if you're there to get to, I'll say, train or bus lines, or get into Lisbon, or drive to Coimbra or up to Porto. But it's a beautiful area, and it's something that doesn't show up much. If you're here and you're on a tour, they may take you there if you're in Lisbon or Porto. But when you're thinking of property, it doesn't show up much on Idealista or on content providers as far as places to go or places to think of. Maybe they think it's too far out of the way, but there's some perfect communities there. You definitely need to learn some Portuguese, but beautiful, beautiful area. Heading north, I'm going to hit the Doro Valley by saying if you want wine country living, there are opportunities there. But I'll say a good chunk of the Doro Valley is wine owned, winemaker owned, wine company owned. So there are some places in some of the little towns and villages that you could buy property in. I will say it's a lot more expensive than I thought it was for being smaller, a little farther away from Porto and some of the amenities. I thought, looking at some of the properties, I thought they were overvalued for what you were getting. But I also understand that Doro Valley has been the preeminent wine country for Portugal, or for the world, when they think of Portugal wine and port wine. So I get that. But beautiful places for sure. I just think that they're a little pricey. When I get to Porto's like Lisbon 7 years ago. That's how two realtors that were actually work for two different companies told me that's what they thought is we're looking at properties in Portugal. They said, yeah, it's like 7 years behind, but it'll get there. So at some point when Lisbon is overpriced, which I think much of it is, more people are looking to go a couple hours north and go, well, what's in Porto? Maybe we'll look around here and find something that is more affordable. So hopefully, if you want a smaller version of Lisbon, lots of diversity when it comes to restaurants and shops and things, that may be a place for you. There's one last place that I want to hit on, and it's north of Porto. It's called Braga. It's a very beautiful town. Sometimes expats, and I included, when we went to Porto, we didn't go north. We've gone, okay, we've gone as far as we need to. But actually, Braga was pretty amazing. And looking at a couple of properties there, oh boy, it was enticing enough that we're thinking, okay, if you can get a property for 50% or 60% less than what we have invested in this property that I'm making this video in, and yeah, gosh, you don't have a mortgage, you can just pay it outright, we may, think about, hey, let's move up north, let's move to Braga. Now, I will say, if you're still working, Braga, of all places, has a lot of international businesses, even more so. The offices are in Braga as opposed to Porto. They have sometimes as many as international offices as Lisbon does. So I'm not sure the reason for that, but if you still need to work, Braga is certainly a consideration. And again, a beautiful area as you're getting into northern Portugal, not that far from Spain, and again, more undiscovered than not. More tourists are starting to venture north of Porto, but not that many. And once you get there, I think if you ever took a day trip, let's say, as I'm recapping, to Braga, if you went to Castelo Branco in that region, if you went to, many people have gone to Evra, but Villarreal, Santo Antonio, and the Algarve right on the border, and even if you hit some of the Azores Islands, you might find that there's just amazing opportunity, and you can live in a beautiful place without breaking the bank. So I know this doesn't answer some of your questions as far as where to live, because I know everyone's looking for what's the hot place to live, and I don't have that for you. But what I am using is information that's been compiled by the last 3 years of data on Idealista, several real estate companies here in Lisbon, as well as some data on new home ownership and where people are buying from the government, that those are the areas that you might consider. So don't think of Portugal as just being Algarve, Lisbon, Porto, maybe Madeira. Think of the Azores. Think of these other places. And I think you'll benefit. It'll give you a different perspective, and you may realize that you don't have to open up your wallet or open up your purse or open up your bank account anymore as you're looking for a place either to live now or as you're nearing retirement. As always, thank you so much for watching the video, and enjoy your travels.